Up next on today's Wild West, Oklahoma's Stockyard City. We'll show you the action at the nation's last operating stockyard.
I said, I have people ask me, how can you be so successful? And I said,
Meet the Hall of Fame cowgirl behind Shortys Cowboy Hattery and show you the award-winning art of cowboy sculptor Harold Holden.
Here, my dad is beaming right now.
Plus, we'll take you to the Oscars of the West at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. An Oklahoma edition of today's Wild West is just ahead. The Wild West. It's still out there. And we'll show you how to find it. This is today's Wild West. It's a busy Monday at the Oklahoma National Stockyards. Cattle have been bought and sold here in Oklahoma City ever since this piece of living history was founded back in 1910, the last surviving stockyard in the United States.
We're very proud of the fact that we've survived this long. We offer a very important tool for farmers and ranchers as far as selling their cattle.
Kelly Payne is the stockyard's first female president, a place she knows very well.
Since I was about 5 years old, I've been coming down to the stockyards with my dad, growing up on the bricks, as we call it.
Kelly's the fifth generation of her family in the cattle business.
The whole entire floor of the stockyards is all brick, and it's just really incredible how historic it is. We're in our 111th year of business, and it's very humbling to serve in this position. 100
years ago, there were major stockyards in cities like Fort Worth, Kansas City, and Chicago. So-called terminal markets where cattle were shipped, slaughtered, and processed at nearby packing plants. All are gone.
Just think about where they were in Kansas City and Chicago. Not everyone wants a stockyards right in the middle of their town.
Except this one, which adapted and still thrives.
We are no longer considered a terminal market. The packing houses are long gone. We offer live auction. It's mainly stockers and feeders. So this was the feed and hay barn. That's now converted into an auction house. So we're going to step in here and take a peek at it.
A variety of cattle are bought and sold here. Some headed for feedlots, others for more time in the pasture. All auctioned off.
Just a really good feeling to be able to auctioneer here.
By men who love their work.
We're called auctioneers, but really we get paid to be their friend, to sell their cattle for them and be a part of their livelihood. Just a great honor to be part of that.
Before they come in the ring, they are weighed. The gentleman that's standing in the ring is the commission firm representative, and so he makes any announcements to try and get the most dollars possible for the producer. The auctioneer starts his chant.
The auctioneer call, for a lot of people, it sounds like a foreign language. That's kind of what we want it to sound like. We don't want you to hear the words, we want you to hear the numbers. So what we're saying in between the numbers is just something to add a little rhythm to it.
These are some cattle that just came in.
More than 6,000 cattle will be bought and sold here today, sorted as they arrive through a maze of alleys and chutes.
They'll typically sort by size, and we also sex the cattle. So heifers generally sell separate from bulls or steers.
Once the cows go through the auction ring, they need to get back to their buyer, and much of that work is still done horseback.
They come out of the sale after they've been sold, come in the tub right here. Remy or Crandall will tell us where they're going, and we'll take them to the alley, to the commission companies, and send them where they're supposed to go. Come back, grab another load.
Paramount, 65-yard out. Here they come.
So these were a great big draft of cattle that were sold. So we can only allow so many cattle on the scales at one time for safety to get a weight. So we'll catch about 30,000 pounds and then go to the next draft. There was over 100 head of cattle in this last draft, so they're getting another count on them when they come through to make sure everything is accurate for the producer. So it's kind of hectic back here. Organized chaos is what we like to call it.
Ready?
This organized chaos can be a little tough for a newcomer to understand. But simply put, Oklahoma City is an ideal spot for the cattle business.
You have I-35 going north and south. You have I-40 going east and west. There's wheat pasture to the west of us. There's grassland to the south and to the east. And then you don't have to go very far north of here to get into the feedlot sector of the country. So we're in an awesome location.
It's great. It's a lot of fantastic people. That's probably my favorite, is the people. These farmers and ranchers work hard all year long with that calf crop, and as you saw from being in the barn, within minutes, it's over. But it's a very viable market, a strong market. The history is absolutely terrific. And once again, it's just humbling to be a part of it all.
It's all about making sure there's beef for dinner. And Kelly is all about telling that story. Busloads of school kids are frequent visitors here, and tourists are welcome too. 200,000 stop by in a typical year, learning where their food comes from.
So it's important to be able to grab those folks and let them know what we do and promote the beef industry. You think about what a small speck we are in this big global market, especially today, and it's humbling that we're just in here day to day doing our business, but the outreach and how far it goes around the world is really something incredible to think about.
Just outside the Stockyards is Stockyard City, a historic part of Oklahoma City, featuring all kinds of shops and restaurants with an authentic Western flavor, like Shorty's Caboy Hattery.
I said, I have people ask me, how can you be so successful? And I said, because I'm a very nice person and I love a lot of people. I'm not ugly like you.
She's the official custom hat maker of the American Quarter Horse Association, 10 collegiate equestrian teams,
SMU Mustang. It's actually lasered.
And the Little Britches Rodeo, just to name a few from a very long list. Plus, she's been inducted into the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame.
I was so overwhelmed, I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal.
And the beautiful hats made by Shorty's Caboy Hattery are prized by cowboys and cowgirls everywhere.
It's just a catchy word, and it's slang for cowboy, and everybody thinks I don't know how to spell cowboy, and everybody remembers it.
The former rodeo cowgirl has long loved cowboy hats, but knew little about making them when she first opened for business back in 1990.
My father had passed away, and my brother sent a couple of hats off to a company down at Houston to have them cleaned, and they were ruined when they got back. And he said, you know, as much as you love hats, you ought to get in the hat cleaning business. So a bulb went off in my head.
A friend was seeing a custom hat maker in Oklahoma City, also named Shorty. Shorty tagged along to discover the business was being sold the following Monday at 10 a.m.
I said, well, if he doesn't show, can I buy? And he said, absolutely. So I was there at 9:30 with my check in hand, pacing the floor. And at 2 minutes after 10, I wrote him a check, and it was now my business. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
But it wasn't easy. At first, she used the old company's jerry-rigged boiler made out of an old beer keg to steam her hats until the fire department showed up one day.
And he said, turn that off. Told me not to ever use it again. He said, you could have blown up this whole block because you have a gas leak in here. That's what the smell is. And he said, and you're smoking, you could have blown up. I said, oh my, I had no idea.
She took out a loan, got better equipment, and persevered.
And I kept thinking, you know, if I can clean a hat, I bet I can custom make one. So I started custom making hats by myself. I was the only one working here. It took me 15 years to get good at it.
By the early 1990s, she was selling her hats during the day at horse shows and other Western events and making them at night. And with some help from her sister, business grew.
In my display, I went out in the pasture and cut down a few trees. And that was my display. And my sister would wrap serape blankets through them, and we'd put little lights on them. It was really pretty cool looking, very unique. And that's how I started.
Today, selling 1,000 hats a year all over the country with a trusted team and looking to expand, Shorty's success has come after years of struggle, hard work, and lots of love.
I said, I have people ask me, how can you be so successful? And I said, because I'm a very nice person and I love a lot of people. I'm not ugly like you.
Shorty and her team are on the road about 225 days a year. They were about to head for an AQHA event in Ohio when we stopped by.
90% of these hats will come off the wall and go with us to Ohio.
How many hats you got in this warehouse here?
Not near enough, I can tell you.
I love my job.
While Shorty's traveling, her expert team stays busy in her Stockyard City shop, turning out beautiful hats, handmade, one at a time.
We got this shipment of brown hat bodies in over the weekend.
It all starts with a raw hat body.
We don't build the fur, we don't mix the fur here, we don't do any of that here, or we don't color the hats here. That's all done in Winchester, Tennessee. So this is what we get when we receive a body.
That goes into a century-old blocking machine.
And, we'll cover this up, and when it gets real soft and pliable, we'll put that block in there.
That's the hat size of the customer.
And what this does is this brings out the stiffness in the brim.
That head next goes on an antique but very effective machine that irons the crown of the hat.
And the crown iron machine, it brings out the stiffness in the crown. And the blocking machine is to bring the stiffness out in the brim.
After drying overnight, the hat is then sanded by hand.
Because if you look real close, see how hairy it is? So that we're doing the finish work to it now.
Hats come in a range of quality. 100X pure beaver is the best and most expensive. Shorty believes it's that handmade touch that sets her hats apart from the rest.
Now we got to shape it. Custom made this is for J.T. Haynes.
And I think that's what it is. It makes my hats look different than anybody else's. And then I am very particular about the liner I put in them, the sweatbands I use, and the hat bands that I make, and the buckle sets that I buy. All that's important because that's the look of the hat.
And when you buy a hat from Shorty, you're not just a customer, you become part of the family.
When I sell a hat, it's not for the money. It's for the connection and the love that goes into the hat, and then you become my family. If you're nice, you have to be nice.
Every day I love it. I really love traveling on the road, and I'm meeting all new people. And it's like Shorty has said in the past, people don't just come in and buy a hat and they go out the door like you would. They keep coming back, which is kind of cool because they'll come back and visit, and they just become part of our family.
One family member who's never forgotten is Shorty's beloved sister Shirley, whose pink hat has been displayed in the store ever since she died from breast cancer in 2004, a disease Shorty herself has suffered and survived.
And a lady walked in my shop and saw that I kind of had a little memorial thing because I just lost my sister. She said, well, what is this? And I told her what it was, and she happened to work for the cancer center there in Oklahoma City.
That led to the formation of both the Shirley Bowman Nutrition Clinic and Rain and Cancer, a volunteer group that's raised more than $1 million to help cancer patients in the horse industry.
We've done a lot of fundraisers, and I had a lot of friends that I was just blessed. They just were so kind to give, and it's all about love, honey. That's the truth. Everybody says, how come you're so successful? I don't get it. I said, I'm nice and you're not. There lies the difference.
Visit this shop, and it's clear that while Shorty would love to make you a very fine hat, this is indeed a labor of love as well.
Well, it's been an amazing journey. I've loved every second of it.
Just steps away from Shorty's, in the heart of Stockyard City, stands a grand monument to the Western way of life. You'll meet the Cowboy sculptor who created it just ahead. Cattle drives, cowboys, Indians, and horses. Where do you get your ideas?
I've been around horses all my life.
The American West has inspired the art of Harold Holden.
About it.
Since he was old enough to pick up a pencil.
This one's makeshift shade.
You actually saw that, huh?
Yeah. And this one's early childhood development.
Age 81 when we met.
If you ever raise colts, that's the way you halter break them. Put a rope and a halter on your colt and let him drag that around. He'll step on it. It'll teach him to be able to lead.
Holden, better known to friends as simply H, remains amazingly prolific, even after a lung transplant at the age of 69.
I was down to 135 pounds and maybe a week to live.
His new lungs were working good as new ever since the hospital sent him home, and the longtime team roper made good use of his second chance at life.
We went to the bar and drank a few beers, and we went out and started roping.
The only thing that keeps him off a horse these days is a bad back, but that's not slowing down his art. H was working on a monumental-sized buffalo sculpture.
This is what he's going to look like.
When we visited his home studio he shares outside Enid, Oklahoma, with his wife Edna May.
It's just called Buffalo Point. That's the name of the place where it's going.
Buffalo have been a subject for H more than once over the years. This one greets visitors to the Oklahoma History Museum. It's among some 24 monumental sculptures H has created, including this one of Will Rogers, outside the Oklahoma City airport that bears his name.
Well, making it was kind of fun, really.
Holden's hometown of Enid hosts a series of historical monuments commemorating the Oklahoma land rush.
That's kind of the same character.
And its early pioneers. It's all part of the continuing story.
Yeah. Boomer and old McLean and Homesteader.
H was working on 2 more monuments when we stopped by. A commission of famed NFL and Oklahoma State running back Barry Sanders.
Greatest running back ever.
And another work for OSU that's more typical of Holden's subject matter, OSU mascot Pistol Pete.
Yeah, Frank Eaton was his real name.
A legendary Old West cowboy, lawman, and gunfighter who lived to be 97, a man H actually knew as a boy.
But he and this cowboy friend of mine, they had a stagecoach back then, and they get in that stagecoach, and I think they were tipping the whiskey quite a bit, having a good time.
Your dad's saddle. Holden's dad was a horseman, and horses have forever been part of his life. That's a great painting.
That's why I wanted to be an artist. That was my subject matter.
But his father died in a plane crash when H was just 6 years old.
We just kind of kept those horses that were there when he died, and I raised running horses for a long time.
That lifelong work experience with horses has given Holden a reputation for realistic authenticity. And those who know horses can quickly spot when something's not right.
When they see something, say, that's not right. That horse's leg doesn't bend like that. Of course, you go to look at a Remington bronze, and some of his legs, like a foreleg, cannot go past horizontal, but they'll have them up like this. And I think Remington knew better, but he did it for effect.
A Navy veteran and graduate of the Texas Academy of Art, this famous sculptor actually began his career as a painter and an illustrator for a Houston horse magazine. But the cowboy soon tired of the big city rat race, and a show of his work at a doctor's house back home in Oklahoma launched his career.
And I had my paintings in it, and maybe a couple sculptures or something, and it went over pretty good. And so I just kept at it.
It all worked out, especially after he married his wife Edna May, a couple who are a bit like the legendary Western artist Charlie Russell and his wife Nancy. Like Nancy, Edna May handles the business end. These are like the sketch of a sculpture. So H can focus on creating and avoid trading his art for drinks, as Charlie once did.
No, but I do have a bunch of prints down at the old Frisco bar down there. I used to trade for my Barbie-o.
Oh yeah, just like Charlie, huh?
I think that it's been such a gift for me to be married to him because of what he does, because we've traveled all over the country, we've gone to great ranches, we've met great people, we've become friends with people that ordinarily I don't know that we would have if it weren't for his art. You know, going to the Cowboy Hall, going to the archery, going, on these different events. So it's been a lot of fun.
So you got hired to do the monument for a conference center. Mm-hmm. Dedicated in 1987, Boomer was Holden's first monumental-sized sculpture, a project that was a major learning curve. Is that a major challenge to do your first monument?
Yes, I learned everything on that deal, and I didn't make much money learning either.
A commission soon followed from the National Ranching Heritage Center to create The Rancher, both monument size and a maquette that is the group's annual Golden Spur Award given to the Rancher of the Year.
Gradually got some customers and just kept working at it. Didn't get rich, but I was doing what I wanted to do.
His work today is prized by collectors and institutions across the country.
H always says if the house catches on fire, this is the thing to grab.
The Holden home and home studio are a bit like an art museum, filled with his own work and artist friends he's traded with over the years.
All these bits up there I traded for. Some of them I designed. This one here, got my brand on it.
This very humble cowboy has received a very long list of honors and awards, including membership in the National Sculpture Society, the prestigious Cowboy Artists of America, and induction into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, plus top honors at the biggest Western art shows in the country.
Well, when I look at it, I'm just the peon with the big boys. When I look at some of those guys, those painters, gee. Now, sculpting, I think I can do, fairly good work. But some of those painters, gee, they're just so good.
And the end of the trail is nowhere in sight.
Hopefully. I don't want to be to where I can't do anything. If I can't hardly do anything anymore, I think I'll get on that horse, get me his bronc and get bucks off, and that's it.
The Holden sculpture coveted by Westerners everywhere is the Wrangler Award.
Thank you so much for this award, and God bless.
Given to honorees at the annual Western Heritage Awards at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. We'll show you around that fabulous place when today's Wild West continues.
The English have Shakespeare, the French have Molière, and the Russians have Dostoevsky. What do we own? What do we have? The Western.
Robert Duvall. George Strait.
Get here, my dad is beaming right now.
Tom Selleck, Kevin Costner, Barbara Stanwyck, and John Wayne. Just a few of the stars that have been honored.
You've heard it said, and so often it's true. Behind a great man, there's a good woman, too.
At the Western Heritage Awards at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. Held every April, the Gala Saturday Night Awards dinner and ceremony caps a weekend honoring the best in Western film, TV, literature, and music. Hosted by an Oklahoma City museum that is a treasure chest of the American West.
The best part of coming here is I see something new every day.
First thing everybody sees when they step inside the museum is End of the Trail.
People have got many opinions about it.
The monumental and thought-provoking sculpture by James Earl Fraser.
What it means and what it meant then and what it means today.
Museum curator Eric Singleton is a fascinating tour guide of this place.
The West and museums are more than just paintings and sculptures and objects, they're stories.
Western art is an important part of that story.
Everyone has their own points of view.
The museum is home to the works of such legends as Charles M. Russell, Frederick Remington, and Albert Bierstadt.
And that was how people saw the West. And so they were critical to defining and putting the West in the American public's imagination.
Today's top Western artists are showcased here every year at the museum's prestigious Prix de West Invitational Art Exhibition and Sale.
I think if you look at the numbers and the quality of artists and the amount of artists that participate, I don't think any other museum in the country can compare to this art show.
Tucker Smith's masterpiece, Return of Summer, is among those who have won the show's top honor, the Prix de West Purchase Award, becoming part of the museum's permanent collection.
But you have to accept diversity, and that's why Western heritage is so important.
And so began the story of our next inductee to the Hall of Great Westerners. A son of enslaved people, he became one of the West's first black cowboys, and tonight we honor civic leader and cowboy, Matthew Bones Hooks.
And just a couple of weeks ago, my husband and I stopped off at the grave of Matthew Bone Hooks and his wife Ann, just to say, well done, cowboy. Well done.
And these Western Heritage Awards that we just had were so important because it's meant to celebrate the diversity. And once you get diversity in the door, then people see the commonality that they all share.
Many have had their perceptions of the American West shaped through the Western movie or TV show.
This has now become history. All those films, all those Western films.
And a gallery is devoted to the cowboys of the silver screen, featuring many of their costumes, six-shooters, and saddles.
There's so many icons of the American West because it was such a defining period for American culture.
Tombstone star Kurt Russell and his late father Bing, perhaps best known for his work on TV's Bonanza, joined the legends inducted into the museum's Hall of Great Western Performers during the 2022 Western Heritage Awards.
This is really a pleasure. There's an energy in this room that you really don't feel anywhere else.
An evening emceed by Native American actor Moses Brings Plenty.
Wow,
It's an honor to be back here with you all tonight.
The National Cowboy Museum includes a gallery devoted to Indians and the beautiful headdresses, artifacts, and stories of Native American culture. The Indian Wars of the 1800s are the focus of the Joe Grandee Gallery of the Frontier West,
which were such a defining period of this country,
calling the soldiers, scouts, and the equipment they used on the front lines of the frontier.
And it actually goes all the way back to the vaqueros.
When the smoke cleared, the dust rose from the cattle drives of the open range, the rich legacy of the American cowboy.
So part of this gallery really touches on the evolution of what we know today as the cowboy.
The trail many cowboys ride today is the rodeo circuit, another aspect of the West you can actually step into here in the museum's recreated rodeo arena.
You have a lot of visitors who are not from the West, and so this gives them a chance to step into an environment that so many Westerners take for granted and know so well.
You can even visit the Old West at Prosperity Junction, a recreated frontier town. You can walk into an old-time saloon, pull up a chair, order up a drink. Hey, barkeep! This museum can be a bit overwhelming in a good way. There's just so much to see.
You know, you have to balance it between time and what you want to see. Because if you give me a week, I'll give you a good tour. If you give me an hour, I'll give you the highlights.
But there's one highlight I'll never forget.
The award for Outstanding Western Lifestyle Program goes to Mark Bedore.
Setting foot on the same stage as all those Western legends, as today's Wild West was honored at the museum's Western Heritage Awards.
Thank you very much.
Quite a thrill.
And to receive this award from the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum is the greatest honor that this cowboy could ever receive. I thank you, I thank God, and thank God for the National Cowboy Museum and all it stands for.
That's it for now. We're back next time with more cool stuff from today's Wild West. I'm Mark Bedore. We'll see you down the trail. For more information on the people and places featured in today's Wild West, or to order show DVDs and books, visit todayswildwest.com. Funding for Today's Wild West provided by the Leggett Foundation,